We are live. We are live. I'm Dr. Frita, and welcome to Medical Monday. This is Medicine in the News, where we talk about all of the hot health topics in the headlines. Well, today we have quite a few topics to talk about. So make sure as you come in, you like and subscribe, because you know that movie is out. Bad Boys, Bad Boys. What you gonna do? Bad Boys Ride or Die has premiered, and some rumors have premiered, as well as the star Martin Lawrence reportedly had some slurred speech, some altered behavior. And so there have been rumors in the rumor mill that he suffered a stroke. Well, guess what? He cleared all of that up. He said he is fine, he is healthy. So we'll talk about the rumors. And even more importantly, we'll talk about some facts on the signs and symptoms of a stroke, how to prevent it, how to recognize it, how to get treated. And then we'll talk about Princess Kate. Yes, Kate Middleton. You remember she shared that she has been diagnosed with cancer. And now she reportedly has said that she's not going to be fulfilling her routine duties. You know, she'll be spending the summer with her family. Well, you know, that opened up all kinds of rumors in the rumor mill. And so we'll talk about an update on Princess Kate's health, and we'll review some of the potential causes of abdominal cancer, which she has, even though they have not revealed exactly what kind of cancer she has. We'll still talk about some things for our health. And guess what? It's Pride Month. It's Pride Month in June. And whether you're part of the community or not, you need to be aware on how to stay healthy, because Mpox, formerly known as monkeypox, is still a thing. You remember in 2022 when it became like a huge public health crisis and just thousands and thousands of cases were popping up? Well, we'll talk about the communities that are at highest risk for Mpox and the fact that it's still here. Cases are here. So we'll talk about Mpox, what it is, and how to protect yourself while you are outside during Pride Month and all the other months as well. And one more bit of news, an update on the bird flu. A man in Mexico has died reportedly with complications from the bird flu. So I'll give you an update on bird flu, what it is, how to protect yourself. And then my favorite part, we are here live. We are live, and I'm going to do a live Q&A. If you want to ask questions, please do. I'll answer them right off the dome, top of my head. And also, if you want to come up on stage, put an orange heart emoji next to your question, and we'll invite you up live on stage. So go ahead, hit like as you come into this room, get ready for these hot health topics, and stay with me. This is going to be a good show. All right, let's get into these hot health topics. I am Dr. Frita, and we are about to hit these topics, but I'm not going to do it alone. I'd like to welcome my co-host and my practice manager, Shador, to the stage. Come on down. How you doing, Shador?
Doing pretty good. How are you doing today?
Doing very well, doing very well. Look, the health news just kept hitting. It kept hitting all weekend long. And of course, we like to use these hot health topics as a way for all of us to live our healthiest, happiest lives. And so we're going to go ahead and jump right into it and get started with our first topic. Let's first talk about Princess Kate. We know that she is a young mother. Of course, she is royalty in the UK. And even as a young woman, she shared that she had the unfortunate diagnosis of an abdominal cancer. Okay. And though she never revealed exactly what it is, she has her privacy. I like to talk about these things, and so that all of us can talk to our loved ones and to ourselves on how to prevent different abdominal cancers, or at least detect them at an early stage, and so that the prognosis can be best. Well, now there are rumors going around that since she reportedly is not going to be fulfilling her duties and she's, not showing up to more and more activities, we know she shared that she's undergoing chemo. Folks are saying that she might be sicker than we think, that she might not even be around. There's all kinds of rumors. So let's play this first clip and then we'll talk about it.
Sources are speaking up directly to outlets to speak in regards to what has gone viral over the past 24 hours in regards to the Princess of Wales, Kate Middleton. Hey guys, it's Murad Morali. Hopefully you guys are all doing well today. Back again, it is daily and consistent content. Comment down below and give this video a thumbs up. Another royal nugget video for you guys to get into. Please do subscribe and please head over to my Instagram at Murad_Morali, and let's get straight into this video because we have a lot to break down and discuss. So yesterday it went viral. Every outlet picked this story up. Every single outlet that I have seen, even all over the blogs on Instagram, that Kate Middleton may never return to, royal engagements, the working family at this point, the royal working family. She's never going to return because obviously of her health. This came from the US Weekly. A day before that, we had a story from the senior palace courtiers to the Globe that she may wake up dead and we don't even know, which is obviously a very startling and dark conversation to have. Well, now sources from Buckingham Palace are speaking out, of course, doing damage control, and they're very upset with this news that has come out. And a source for the outlet alleged that Kate Middleton may never come back in the role, but people saw her before. But royal insiders have spoken out directly today to Harper's Bazaar and claimed that this is all unfair and untrue. There is no information about Kate's return because the focus at this moment in time is 100% on her health. To suggest she won't return to her role is very unfair and very untrue. Conversations of that nature are just not being had. When the time is right, she will resume her work. Of how Kate is currently doing, the royal sources state that she's in good spirits. She is focused on her health and family. So this has directly come out from Harper's Bazaar. They continue. The princess will return to official duties when she is cleared to do so by her medical team. She's in good spirits and is focused on making a full recovery. Now, what we've noticed in regards to this whole story with Kate is that the line is always moving. The line, guys, is always moving when it comes to updates on Kate's return. It was meant to be prior to Easter or beginning of Easter. Then it was tripping of colors. Now it's when the medical team gives the go-ahead. So rather than saying things with Kate are not going well, guys, we said Easter, that's not going to happen because her health is deteriorating. It's not getting to a good place. Please keep it in your prayers. That would have just been enough. Rather than giving us updates that things are changing. Why would you not just tell us she's not doing well, hence why her return has been delayed? So I think it's the lack of transparency that is making everybody so suspicious about what is going on when they really just could have.
Yeah. So the update is that, as he mentioned, they keep changing the update, which we know that health is very dynamic. It's hard to know. I guess the problem is that for most of us, we really do get a chance to have our privacy HIPAA in effect. But when you have such a public position as literally being royalty, being a princess, it's very difficult for you to have that privacy. But then when you don't have the transparency in something that is so startling as a very young woman having a cancer that you never share, to the public what it is. You share everything else publicly. Your entire life is publicly. But then when you don't share what it is, then it just makes people very anxious. And is it fair? Well, no, probably not. Life is not fair, right? It's also not fair, that some people are multi-billionaires. It's not fair that some people will never have poverty. It's not fair that some people have limitless health care. Not fair that some people have privilege. But in some cases, when you're one of those people, then you're not fair is that your privacy is not given to you the same as someone who might be suffering those things alone. And so I want to ask a question. First off, Shador, who's the first person in the chat today?
Absolutely. Our first person in the chat today goes to Miss Pat D. Hey, Miss Pat.
How you doing? Hey, welcome back. I love when you come in, Miss Pat D.
She's a very good evening, Dr. Frita and Shador. Hi.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I want to ask this question. So we see that Buckingham Palace, that the royalty, they're saying that she's doing well, that everything is positive, that she's healing. But then they said that she was going to be back in April. And then they're saying, okay, not this summer. Do you think, and I know you don't know, but put a 1 if you believe that they are hiding some news that's not good about Princess Kate. Put a 1 if you believe that they're hiding news that's not good about Princess Kate. Because it is possible that she is doing really great and they're just showing us absolutely zero pictures. I think one thing that made her that made the transparency, the lack of transparency clear was when she posted, I believe, that Mother's Day photo and then later came back and admitted that it was photoshopped. you know, it just makes it tricky. But yeah, put a 1 if you think they're hiding some bad news about her health. We certainly pray that she has good news. But in the meanwhile, let's talk about how this medicine in the news can actually be relevant, you know, to be helpful to everyone. So again, we know that she shared that she had an abdominal cancer. We do not know what cancer she has. So in the update, they haven't shared what cancer. They just said that she has undergone chemo and that she's doing well. And by they, I mean the spokespeople of the Royals. But when we think about the differential diagnosis, and again, I don't know, they haven't shared, but one possibility is ovarian cancer. The tough thing about ovarian cancer is that there's no regular screening in our US protocols for screening. There's no routine screening for ovarian cancer. And so some of the symptoms of ovarian cancer can be possibly pain in the abdomen, abnormal bleeding, cramping. And if you're having those symptoms, and if your doctor does an abdominal ultrasound, they might see an ovarian mass, a mass in the ovary. Another thing that could happen in a young lady, a type of a cancer, would be cervical cancer. Now, for cervical cancer, we do have regular screening recommended, and that's the pap smear. Okay, you want to consult with your primary care doctor, because oftentimes we recommend, at least by the age of 18, whether you are sexually active or not, that you have some form of a pelvic exam or a discussion on when it's appropriate to have a pelvic exam. And then certainly no later than by the age of 21, we recommend that you get screened for cervical cancer. So as far as your risk factors and the frequency of screening, you want to consult with your primary care doctor and certainly your GYN, your gynecologist, on how frequently. But we do know that the hugest risk factor for cervical cancer is HPV, human papillomavirus. Fortunately, we do have a vaccine now that can help to prevent, to a very high degree, that cervical cancer. The HPV vaccine can also prevent throat cancer. It can prevent anal cancers and things of the like. So again, I don't know what kind that she has. It has not been revealed to the public, but cervical cancer in a young woman is another possibility. Another possibility, of course, in abdominal cancer would be colon cancer, you know, and even though she's actually still too young to have had routine screening, if you're a person who's had a family history of colon cancer, you want to talk with your doctor on when you should be screened, because so it used to be 50 in the United States and then 45, especially for high risk groups. And if you listen to the sound of my voice and you're a Black person, guess what? You're considered to be in a high risk group for colon cancer, because Black people, we tend to be diagnosed at younger ages and with more aggressive forms of colon cancer. And you will recall that our Black Panther, remember our star, Chadwick Boseman, died of colon cancer at a young age. So you definitely want to talk about family history and when it's proper for you to be screened with your colonoscopy. But that's another possibility for a colon cancer. But even as a young person, if you have a family history, or if you have one of those genetic predispositions like multiple polyps, familial polyposis, one of those syndromes, then you could be at high risk, familial adenomatous polyposis. Other forms of abdominal cancer, the liver, you know, and if you have a history of hepatitis, then you could be at a higher risk for liver cancer. Gallbladder cancer, that's quite rare. Right here on this YouTube channel, right here. And, you know, I'm very proud of our channel here. We have well over 720,000 subscribers, many videos, well over 42 million views. I actually have a video on gallbladder cancer, but that's a rare but a possible form of abdominal cancer. You can get intestinal cancer. So there's all types of possibilities. We don't know which one she has, but for you listening, make sure you consult with your primary care physician to make sure that you're up to date on all of the age appropriate cancer screenings. Now, do we have any ones in the chat for anyone who feels like this sounds suspicious?
Absolutely.
What do we have?
We have John as a one.
Yeah.
Definitely hiding something.
Hi, John.
Karen Jones.
Hi, Karen Jones.
Chatting with Elise.
Hi, chatting with Elise. It's good to see you.
And Janice Milliken.
Hello. Hi, Janice. Yeah, so I feel the same way. And I'm actually mixed on this, because yes, I do feel like they're hiding something, because guess what? If she's doing very well, then you expect to see a picture of or a photo. Is she obligated? Not necessarily. But again, when you're a person who has a very public personality, when you are the royal, then this is to be expected that we're curious, and not just curious out of nosiness, but also curious out of concern. Many of us gain a certain affinity. We see the kids, we've seen everything that happens from the beginning. We've seen when she was dating Prince William. We see when she had the marriage, and she seems like a good mom, perfectly fine person. And so you wish her well, and you also just have a curiosity. I know I do, but it feels like they're hiding something. I pray that they're not hiding anything bad, and I certainly pray that she has a speedy recovery. But yes, again, make sure that everyone listening, and your loved ones have the age appropriate screening for abdominal cancer, and that you pay attention to symptoms. Okay. Again, colon cancer, we have routine screening. Cervical cancer, we have routine screening. For the others, you just definitely want to pay attention to your body. For women, if it's a gynecological issue, you want to look for abnormal bleeding, abnormal spotting, abdominal pain, bloating, cramping, things of that nature. And make sure you advocate for yourself. We know we had that beauty influencer, the social media influencer, Jessica Petway. We talked about her, who lost her life to cervical cancer because she was misdiagnosed with fibroids. She was misdiagnosed. So just because a doctor tells you, oh, it's fine, it is your right to advocate for yourself. Your body. Yes, you respect, physicians, people in the medical field, but you also have to respect yourself and what you know. If they tell you everything's fine, but everything is not fine, it is your right to get a second opinion, or your right to push for yourself, advocate for yourself, advocate for loved ones. All right. So if anyone has any questions about any of those abdominal cancers that I mentioned, then you can go ahead and put them in the chat. We'll get to them for the live Q&A. Or again, you can put a heart emoji, an orange heart emoji, if you want to come on up and join us on stage. All right. So let me ask
Dr. Frita. John has a question regarding chemo with different cancers.
Okay.
Not directly different cancer. John says some people don't tolerate chemo well at all, right?
That is absolutely correct, because you've got to think. So chemo or chemotherapy has a job to do. What is its job? To kill. Its job is to kill abnormal cells. So just by definition, John, on what cancer is, it is when you have cells that begin multiplying abnormally, okay, and they don't have the apoptosis. So all of the cells in our body that multiply eventually have a time where it's time for the cells to stop living. Okay. There's a life cycle. The cells multiply, stop living, new cells multiply. But with cancer cells, for example, for someone who has ovarian cancer, the ovarian cells multiply and multiply and multiply, and they keep living. And then they start invading other tissues, invading your body, and they take over to the point where you can't live. Well, the point of chemotherapy is to kill these cells, right? But if you're killing rapidly dividing cells like cancer cells, then you're also, unfortunately, as a side effect, killing some other rapidly developing cells, such as blood cells. So oftentimes people who are on chemotherapy will get very anemic, or they might get low white blood cells, and they become very vulnerable or susceptible to infections. They're immunocompromised. It will kill rapidly dividing cells, like cells that are responsible for hair growth. So a lot of people on chemotherapy will lose their hair. It will kill rapidly dividing cells, like cells in your GI system, your gastrointestinal system, like your stomach, your intestines. And so many people with chemotherapy will lose their appetites, or have diarrhea, or become very malnourished or cachectic. And so, yes, a lot of people just don't tolerate it. And so then it becomes a risk-benefit question. Do the benefits of potentially curing or stopping or slowing down the progression of a cancer, do those benefits of the chemo doing that outweigh the risks of it making some people miserable? And I do have patients who've made the choice, especially patients who are very frail, or some of our patients who are elderly, who say, I don't want it. I don't want any chemotherapy, and they'll make that choice. And so that's the whole thing about medicine. Yes, we're in the business of saving lives, also in the business of respecting lives. So yes, you have a point, John. Everyone doesn't tolerate chemotherapy, but it's important to have a robust discussion with your oncologist. And when I say your, I'm talking about general you, not you, John, but anyone who's dealing with cancer, or you have a loved one. Have that discussion with your oncologist about the side effects and the alternatives. Sometimes there's a standard of care treatment with chemotherapy, but then there's some alternatives that may not necessarily work as well, but maybe they're tolerated better. So you want to make sure that you take control and that you're a part of the discussion in healthcare. You want to talk, and educate yourself as much as possible for people who are dealing with chemotherapy. But everyone doesn't tolerate it, but in many cases, we have chemotherapy that can help people become cancer-free. Yeah. Good question.
Yeah, very good question. And just chatting with Elise had a follow-up to the chemo. She says, does that apply to radiation? Get some of the.
Yes. You know, with the radiation, and the radiation tends to be more local. So, you know, if you take a chemotherapy, that's your whole body. Okay. The medicine is affecting your entire body. With radiation, you know, they'll tend to put a little tattoo. For example, for someone who's living with breast cancer, they'll put little tattoos on you so that the radiation beam can get more locally right to where the cancer is. But sometimes there's like local irritation of the skin, local burning, you get sun sensitivity. And so there tends to be more of a local issue with radiation, whereas the chemotherapy will infect your entire body. It can affect your entire body and how you feel. It can just make you fatigued, make you lose your energy. Yeah. Good questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Frita.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So that's our topic number one. Let's move on to the next topic. And it's about the bad boy, what you want to do. I want y'all please to put a 2 in the chat if you ever watched Martin Lawrence in that Martin Lawrence show back when he had Shanae, oh my goodness. He was dressed like a woman. He had the like original, probably fake BBL, the way he had his Shanae's pants stuff. He used to fight with Gina. You know, it was crazy. They had Tommy. It was just too much. That show cracked me up. And that was back before we had all of the streaming and the apps, and you can watch a show when you feel like it. That was when we all had to gather exactly at the time that the show came on. We watched it. That was my highlight of the week. But put a 2 in the chat if you grew up watching Martin, or if you ever even if you watched the reruns, the Martin Lawrence show, because he has made the hot health headlines. Martin Lawrence has. With
so, you know,
rumors.
People are jumping on with this one.
Okay, I want to know your favorite character. My favorite character was Shanae. Oh my goodness! But you know what? I also like Big Shirley, because we never what was his name? Shoot, Big Shirley. Whose girlfriend was Big Shirley?
Like,
they never showed her face, but they always show her getting her nails done. Who? They were wrong for that. Cole. Shador, they used to have her getting pedicures, and they had like the person using big old like tools to give her a pedicure. They were so wrong. And then Roscoe, I believe that was a little old nasty nosed boy who would always come in the window. As Roscoe, he always needed to clean his nose. Anyway, the point is Martin Lawrence was very creative, and that was an innovative show. But now he's in the headlines. Shador, did you see that? He's in one of the hot health headlines because the rumors have it that he's had a stroke. Now, he did come out and he cleared it up, and he said that he is healthy. Martin Lawrence, right out of his mouth, said that he's healthy and that he did not have a stroke. But let's talk a little bit about why the rumor mill came out. Because he reportedly, you know, they had the Bad Boys, the movie Bad Boys Ride or Die premiered. I'm going to watch that. Yeah, I am. But anyway, it premiered, and when he was doing some of the press, he has been recorded and also reportedly having slurred speech, getting words wrong. He was even walking at a point reportedly where they said it looked like Will Smith was physically having to support him to walk. These are different things that folks have witnessed and have reported and said maybe he had a stroke. But Martin Lawrence said that he did not have a stroke. So what we will do, of course, as we want him to have great health, we'll go ahead and take this time and I'll talk to you about warning signs and symptoms of a stroke, risk factors, how to prevent it, how to treat it. So let's watch this clip on Martin Lawrence. Oh my goodness.
News, I'm Symphony Thompson. We're just 2 days away from the release of the highly anticipated Bad Boys Ride or Die, and it stars Will Smith and Martin Lawrence have geared up promotion for the 4th film in the series. Throughout the press run, fans had taken notice of the condition of Lawrence, stating that he doesn't seem like himself, including one clip of Smith holding Lawrence by the hand guiding him. Well, during an appearance on Hot 97's Embro in the Morning, Lawrence himself has shut down any health concerns the public may have.
And Martin, is that what everybody's taking? You on the balcony waving to people, you looking around? Were you looking around like, yo, this is massive? People took it like something was wrong with your health or something.
I was like, oh, this is rock concert stuff. What the hell is going on? I was like, for a movie? I was like, oh my goodness, man.
Host Ebro would then take the opportunity to ask Martin if there's anything he wanted to say to the people due to their concerns. In regards to his health, Martin said,
I'm fine. I'm in God's hands. I'm blessed. You know, I'm glad to be waking up every day and everything. No need for people to be concerned. And I'm healthy as hell. Stop the rumors.
Worries over Martin have been an underlying narrative on social media within the Bad Boys 4 campaign, with many expressing their sympathies and some even offering their prayers. On social media, the conversation would continue. One online user would say, "I'm praying for Martin's health and Will's psyche. Amen." Another social media user would react, "Real fans know, not only is he dealing with the loss, he has had previous health issues in the past. We're used to seeing Marty Marr from over 30 years. Let's all pray that we all age gracefully and remain in good health." Now, these previous health issues include Lawrence being hospitalized for extreme exhaustion and dehydration back in 1996. Another would include Lawrence sloping into a 3-day coma after collapsing from severe heat exhaustion while exercising in 1999. As the conversation on social media continued, one more would add, "I can appreciate y'all for asking Martin straight up about his health. I'm not sure if I believe him, but gotta accept what he said." Many others would agree with the last sentiment, respecting Lawrence's privacy at the time.
Okay. All right. So he came out, he denied it. He said that he's healthy. I think the tricky part is that we've witnessed some of our fan favorites, some of our comedians who have had health issues. And it almost seems sometimes like, and yes, you understand that they want to protect their privacy. You also understand that poor health is bad marketing, especially for someone who's playing a role of somewhat of an action hero. You remember when Jamie Foxx disappeared with pretty much no explanation on his health, and then he came back and he looks healthy, and we never got very many answers. And I guess that's kind of on that line again, respecting privacy versus too much is given, much is required. You get all the fame, you get all the fortune, you get all the publicity, you get all of the money. You don't necessarily get the privacy. Is that right? I don't know if it's right, but they're out here like that, and we're curious. Plus, we want to know, so so we can take care of our own health. So, do we have any twos? Did anybody share their favorite Martin character, Shador?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I want to know
So,
who was up there watching Martin when I was.
Aileen, Youngblood. Hi.
Hello, hi. How are you doing,
Look,
Aileen?
Bro Man was my favorite.
Bro man, from what floor? From the 5th floor, or from the? He had the wrong number up. 4th floor. 5th floor. And Shador, you are very young. How you know about Martin? I ain't gonna even ask. Oh my goodness, bro man from the 5th floor. Bro man from the 5th floor. I forgot about bro man. Who else?
Chatting with Lee says Dragonfly Jones.
Wait a minute. Make me know Dragonfly Jones. Do you remember Shador?
I don't know. She's like bald, no teeth, and big belly. Oh yeah.
Oh,
maybe.
Who else?
Randy's also says bro man.
Bro man.
Robin Phillips says Cole.
Cole was hilarious. He was always a butt of the jokes, wasn't? But baby,
Yeah,
he loved Big Shirley. And who was that? Was that bro man who used to show up and be sitting at their table eating their food when they got home?
Bro man just show up out of nowhere.
Oh my gosh, that show was just really creative. It was creative. Oh my goodness. Anybody else like Shanae? Let me tell you, my mama liked Shanae, honey. Shanae's nails were always together, full of diamonds, crystals. She had blonde wigs. Shanae was not even playing with y'all. She had crop tops. All right, but back to Martin Lawrence in this health.
Lucy loves Shanae.
Who loves Shanae?
Lucy Livingston. Hi, Lucy.
Hey, Lucy. How are you doing? Look, Shanae just really cracked me up. But let's talk about Martin Lawrence and his health. So I'm going to talk to you about what strokes are, the warning signs and symptoms. But I actually want to ask you to put in the chat, if he didn't have a stroke, as he said, what are some other possibilities do you think that could explain his slurred speech, his missing words, and what appeared to be Will Smith holding him up? Okay. And we know he shared that he slipped into a coma, which is no small thing, from heat stroke, from working out. And so we know that part about his health. And someone else mentioned that he recently had grief. He lost his brother, Larry, So I want y'all to put in the chat what you think could possibly be causing what seemed to be symptoms of a stroke. But meanwhile, let's just talk about strokes. So a stroke is when a part of the brain does not have sufficient blood flow. And it can be from two reasons. It can be that the brain artery has a blocked blood flow, okay? And so you get an ischemic stroke, not enough blood flow to the brain, or you can have a hemorrhagic stroke where there's massive bleeding from a brain artery or cerebral artery bursting. And of the ischemic strokes, there are two different types. There is a thrombotic stroke, where you just have a plaque or like a fatty atherosclerosis that clogs and blocks, completely like blocks the flow. And then what happens? You have brain tissue that dies. Or you can have an embolic stroke where the clot leaves and travels from somewhere else to the brain. So if a person has carotid artery disease, where they can get a narrowing or clot, or they can get plaques in the carotid arteries, the plaque can break off and go to the brain. That can cause an embolic stroke, still one of the ischemic strokes. Or even if someone has atrial fibrillation, an abnormal heart rhythm, then they can get a clot that forms in the heart. And then that clot can break off and go to the brain. That's an embolic stroke. And the most common type of a stroke is an ischemic stroke. So 87% of strokes are ischemic, 13% are hemorrhagic. And so that's the kind of background on stroke. So there are lots of risk factors for strokes. Diabetes is a risk factor. And we know that diabetes is also the #1 cause of kidney failure, but diabetes is a risk factor for strokes. High blood pressure, which is the #2 cause of kidney failure. Having high cholesterol is a risk factor for stroke. Make sure you check out my YouTube video right here on how to unclog your arteries naturally after you finish watching this live, where I talk about some different strategies, some natural strategies largely on how to keep yourself from having these clots and plaques in the arteries. Some other risk factors: if you're a person living with obesity, that can put you at a high risk for strokes. And if you have atrial fibrillation, like we talked about, and you remember Senator Fetterman, who defeated Dr. Oz when he was running for senator, actually was out on a break for a while, a health break. And they were a little secretive for a while, as oftentimes these campaigns are. And then we found out that he had a stroke, and that his stroke was due to atrial fibrillation. He had abnormal rhythm in his heart that caused the blood to slosh around in the heart instead of beating normally, like ba-boom, ba-boom, instead of ba-boom, ba-boom. When you have atrial fibrillation, the heart has an irregular rhythm. So it's boop, 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 all over the place. The blood sloshes around and you can get clots, which can break off. That's what happened to Senator Fetterman. And so these are some of the major risk factors for stroke. What's really important is being aware of the symptoms, because if you catch the symptoms early, then you can potentially get the intervention or the treatment early, and you can prevent yourself from having a lot of the side effects, a lot of the long-term consequences. So there's a couple of like acronyms or mnemonics for how to watch the warning signs and symptoms of a stroke. The original one was think fast, FAST. So if you have facial drooping, arm or leg weakness, slurred speech, it's time to call 911. And then there's a modification, which is be fast, BEFAST. If you have balance issues, eye problems like blurred vision, and then also the facial drooping, arm, leg weakness, slurred speech, time to call 911. And here's why it's really important to think fast and to call 911. Because if, for example, you have a blockage for the blood flow, right? If you have an ischemic stroke, if you get to the ER fast enough, there's certain medications, some thrombolytics like TPA, clot busters, basically, where they can give you this very strong blood thinner that can literally dissolve the clot and prevent that brain tissue from dying. But there's a narrow window of when you can get that. So you don't have time to sit around and think, oh, my face is drooping. Maybe I just slept wrong. Or, oh, my arm is weak. Maybe I just, worked too hard. Maybe I'm stressed. Don't come up with the excuses. Let the physicians talk to you about the reasons. And even if you have family members, because it's real hard. If you have a family member who's like, I don't want people in my business, don't be calling 911. I don't want to pay for the ambulance. I don't want my neighbor, Billy Bob, knowing it's difficult when you have a loved one and you see they're having these symptoms. They're telling you not to call 911. Let me tell you, if you see someone having this facial drooping, arm weakness, slurred speech, all of those things, and if you think that it might be a stroke, please call 911 and let them tell you off later. You can save a life, okay? Time is brain tissue. All right. So for him, he had the slurred speech. and it looks like he possibly is having balance problems. But again, he has declared definitively, Martin Lawrence has, that he did not have a stroke. So as I see, did anyone make any comments, Shador, on what they think it could be if he didn't have a stroke, some of these symptoms? If
Yes.
so, as that comes. Okay, so before we talk about those, I do want to talk about something called a mini stroke. Okay, a TIA. A lot of people throw that term around. Oh, I had a mini stroke, I had a TIA. But here's the thing. A TIA, transient ischemic attack, is if you have some of these symptoms of a stroke, but they last for less than 24 hours. Now, I mean, they clear up all the way in less than 24 hours. And if you have a TIA or a mini stroke, that is a warning sign to you, and you need to thank somebody, because that means that you are at a very, very high risk for getting an actual stroke or cerebrovascular event, CVA. And so that gives you time to try to reverse some of those risk factors, or at least reverse some of the consequences of the risk factor. Get your diabetes under control, get your blood pressure under control, get your cholesterol under control, exercise, get to a healthy weight. You want to do all of those things. But what I find a lot of times, Shador, people who come to the office and they might still have weakness on one of their sides, they can't use their hand, or they're walking on a cane, they might have slurred speech. They might be like, yeah, I was told I had a little stroke, I had a mini stroke. It's not a mini stroke or TIA unless the symptoms completely resolve in less than 24 hours. Now, oftentimes symptoms can get better, but if it takes more than 24 hours, then quite technically it's not called a TIA. Okay, so Martin Lawrence declared he didn't have the stroke, but he had some type of symptoms, some kind of signs of something that's off that we all witnessed. I want to hear from the chat. What do y'all think it could be? And let's just kind of discuss it together and see what we think it could be.
Yeah, so Karen chimed
Hi,
in.
Karen.
She said, I was thinking maybe Parkinson's.
Oh, that's a good one, Karen. I was thinking the same thing. Now, when I talk about these things, I'm not speaking it on anybody's life, but people with Parkinson's will often be able to mentate very well, like we've seen that Michael J. Fox can do, but they can have balance issues, right? Can definitely have slurred speech. They can have these tremors where they have the resting tremor. Okay, have a tremor while they're at rest, or they have a tremor while they're at rest, like just sitting down, their arms might shake, but then when they move, oftentimes the tremor tends to go away. People with Parkinson's can also have some dementia, but then they can also have very clear minds, clear thinking, like Martin Lawrence has. And certainly with Michael J. Fox, who does have Parkinson's. Martin Lawrence never said he has Parkinson's. We're not saying he does. We're just exploring the possibilities of people who have slurred speech. And with the Parkinson's disease, we do know that there are some treatments like levodopa and even deep brain stimulation. If you have someone who has Parkinson's symptoms, like I was just mentioning, the slurred speech, the tremor, if they have cogwheel rigidity, like they walk in an almost robotic fashion, or even if they get an expressionless face where they just kind of seem to have a flat affect, these could be signs of Parkinson's disease. You definitely want to consult with your physician and even their neurologist. But yeah, I thought the same thing, that Parkinson's can do it. Again, not saying that he has it. Martin Lawrence said he's healthy, nothing wrong with him. But Parkinson's, just for education's sake, is indeed something that can cause slurred speech. Every time I say slurred speech, I feel like I slur my speech. Anyway, Parkinson's can do it. All right. What else? Anybody else?
Piggyback on Parkinson. TS. Hi, TS.
Hi, TS.
TS asks, is Parkinson's the same as essential tremors?
Ooh, not exactly. So for Parkinson's disease has many, many, many symptoms. You can have the tremor, okay, in Parkinson's, but you're also going to have another constellation of symptoms. Tremor alone won't give you the diagnosis of Parkinson's. You'll need the tremor. You'll need the dementia. You'll need the some type of differences in your cognition. You'll need that cogwheel rigidity or the flat movement. You'll need the tremor that's normally a resting tremor. But with the essential tremor, you can have no dementia, no Parkinson's. You can have nothing else going on neurologically except the tremor. Okay. You can be essentially physically and neurologically normal except the tremor, and they call it an essential tremor. And one of the treatments you may have heard, if you know of someone who has an essential tremor, one of the treatments is actually a blood pressure medicine, a beta blocker like propranolol for essential tremor. But yeah, tremor can be a symptom of Parkinson's disease, but Parkinson's disease and tremor are not the same thing, and essential tremor are not the same thing. That's a good question.
It is a good question. Chatting with Elise.
Chatting with Elise.
Maybe some sort of muscular dystrophy.
That is something else that could do. So some type of a neurological disorder that now, oftentimes I'd expect it to occur at an earlier age. So I don't suspect that he has it, but people with muscular dystrophies can get to the point where they have a slurred speech. That's a good thought as well. Yeah. Anyone else?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So again, we're not diagnosing Martin Lawrence. He said he's healthy. We're going to let that man live. But, because they're they're suggesting that he's had a stroke. I did at least want us to take that time to use this hot health topic in the headline so that we can give ourselves a personal check with family members so that we can recognize strokes, know when to call 911, know the risk factors and the prevention, and know the treatment and the importance of timing in the treatment. Shador, it's June. Do you know what that means? It's Pride Month. So yes, it's Pride Month. And so folks are just outside. What do you say? We got another question or comment?
Lucy had a question real quick.
Hey, Lucy.
What imaging is done to diagnose TIA?
Oh, that's good. So very immediately, you'll get a CAT scan or a CT scan of the brain. And here's the reason. Number one, you can do those quickly in the ER. You don't have to sit, wait 45 minutes, do all those things. A CAT scan is just a matter of minutes. And what the CAT scan can show you is if there's any kind of change in the brain. Like if you have a brain bleed, you can see that. And so that's how you can look and see. But here's the thing, even with the CAT scan, if it's an ischemic stroke, okay, one of the strokes that's caused by blockage, you don't necessarily get those brain changes on a CT scan that can be picked up that early. In other words, it takes some time for the changes of brain tissue that is no longer living to show up on a CAT scan. You get a better picture with an MRI, a brain MRI, which the brain MRI usually takes some scheduling. That's oftentimes done on the floor, like in the neurological ICU, and the MRI can show better. But for the TIA, here's the key. You don't expect to see bleeding or any chronic changes, even with an MRI. You only expect from the history or even from the physical, if they show up to the ER and they're still having symptoms, you expect to see the symptoms of the stroke, but the symptoms disappear within 24 hours. So it's a clinical diagnosis.
Good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. Because don't you hear that a lot? Oh, I had a mini stroke, I had a little stroke, but you're looking at somebody who has weakness or slurred speech, and you're like, that's a mini stroke. Maybe it's a stroke where the symptoms have gotten better over time, or they were just a small amount of symptoms, but it's not a TIA or a mini stroke in this. The symptoms completely disappear in less than 24 hours. Okay. All right. Pride Month. So Pride Month is something that everyone in the LGBTQIA community celebrates. And, being a physician, I have a lot of patients who are in the community. I certainly support folks in the community, and I also support folks being healthy in the community. Mpox, formerly known as monkeypox. Now, this is tricky because I remember when it first came out, that's years ago. Mpox is a cousin of smallpox. And we know that smallpox is one of these viruses that would cause deadly diseases that killed many, many people. And it was eradicated, thankfully, in 1980. Well, Mpox is related. And for a while, we really weren't having any Mpox here in the United States. It was seen in other countries, just not here, and in other continents, not here. But we know that we had a big breakout in a really strong public health issue in 2022 when we were getting thousands of cases, like 3,000 cases of Mpox per week. And so that was the deal. And what we found out, and this is why I'm mentioning it during Pride Month, because then and even now, a great majority of the people who got Mpox were people who were in the LGBTQ community, specifically men having sex with men, or transgender women, people who were born as men having sex with men. And it's interesting because it's not even considered to be a sexually transmitted infection, STI. You can even just have close contact and get Mpox. And so the only reason that I want to stress it during Pride Month is because the numbers are the numbers. It's still showing that well over 90% and 99% by some of the numbers of the people who are getting Mpox here in the United States are men having sex with men. And so as everyone is outside during Pride Month, letting your rainbow flag fly, I just want you to be aware of the scientific data that we have so that you can protect yourself. So let's watch this clip and we'll talk more about Mpox.
As we wrap up the month of May and head into Pride Month, there are growing concerns about the potential spread of M-Pox, formerly known as monkeypox.
Anybody can catch it, but the LGBTQ community is the most vulnerable, and health officials are tracking rising cases in the U.S. and overseas. ABC Action News reporter Larissa Scott joins us live now in studio with more. Good morning, Larissa.
Hey, good morning, Dia and James. While cases did increase from the 2022 outbreak, Mpox, it hasn't gone away, and experts tell me a resurgence this summer is possible.
Mpox actually hit Florida really hard in the past, right?
Health officials expect Florida to be one of the states that gets hit hard again if cases spread.
It has to do with the demographics that travel to this state.
Mpox is considered a much less severe cousin of smallpox.
It was first noticed in the 1950s.
It's spread through close personal contact and can cause flu-like symptoms, including fever, headache, swollen lymph nodes, and chills. It's then followed by a rash. That rash can look like pimples or blisters that can appear in places like the hands, feet, chest, face, or near the genitals. Although anyone can get Mpox, men who have sex with men are among the most at risk. The most recent data from the CDC shows there have been more than 700 Mpox cases in the United States this year, which is more than double around the same time last year. Infectious disease experts back then were warning people about the ongoing potential for spread.
As long as that low level exists, there is a potential that, a spark can happen and suddenly we've got a big outbreak again.
Public health experts are worried we could see another Mpox outbreak this summer, with travel expected to break records and upcoming LGBTQ Pride celebrations.
Anytime you have a pretty large population around certain centers, certain population centers, you're going to get that. You're going to get the spread of that.
What has officials even more concerned is that the CDC reports it's been tracking a new type of Mpox in the Democratic Republic of the Congo that poses a global threat for potential spread. Compared to the Mpox virus, which caused the global outbreak that started in 2022, the CDC says this new type can cause more severe illness and higher mortality. So far, no cases of that type have been reported in the U.S., but experts are urging people to take precautions now to avoid an outbreak and get vaccinated if they're at risk.
We have to go back to all that messaging that we did before with Mpox, which is get vaccinated, be aware of symptoms, and then take all those kind of precautions. And then hopefully we can knock that down quickly.
Good job. Yeah. So I remember, Shador, back in 2022 when there was an outbreak, and the narrative kept being it's men having sex with men are at the higher risk. And even deeper than that, Black men and Latino men who were also men having sex with men were at a very high risk. And I remember when the numbers started decreasing after the 2022 outbreak, but still as the numbers decreased, they more decreased epidemiologically in white men having sex with men. But the Black men at one point made up 38% of the cases. Well, 38% may not seem like that much if Black men make up 38% of the cases until you realize that Black people only make up 13% of the population. So it's disproportionate. And same thing with Latino men. Latino men having sex with men at one point were making up a third of the cases. And again, at one point, it's been reported even this year that 99% of the cases of Mpox have been among men having sex with men. And so I bring that up because anytime we're singling out a group, this group, you have to be careful, because sometimes it sounds like, it's just those people over there who can get it. We're trying to discriminate against those people. No. Here, when we talk about these hot health topics, as you know, Shador, we're talking about the evidence, the data, evidence-based information. And so it's important that if you are in the community, and if you are a man having sex with men, whether you call yourself gay, bisexual, or if you say you do it for sport, do you. But if you're a man having sex with men, it's important that you understand the risk factors are there. And it's not just from sex, it's from touching, right? So if you are in any intimate situation where any part of your body is touching anyone else's part of their body, be it hugging, kissing, whatever you're doing, and you touch some of those lesions, those blisters, those macules, those pustules, you can be at risk, okay? And so you just want to be very careful. And the best way that we know that you can prevent it, because when you're out and you're meeting people, and especially this month in Pride Month, when the higher risk populations are going to be outside hanging out, you can get yourself the vaccination. Consult with your physician, okay? Find out what's safe for you. But we do have a 2-part vaccination, a 2-dose vaccine, which really can protect you a great deal if you are in that high risk population. And again, it's not considered a sexually transmitted infection because it can happen with contact. I know that during the outbreak, we had 2 children who contracted Mpox. We've had women who contracted Mpox, and that's important because we know that Mpox can be spread to an unborn fetus in a pregnant woman. Okay, so it's not just people in the community, but just based on the numbers, the epidemiology, the data, men having sex with men have been up to 99, have been reported in 99% of the cases of Mpox. So again, if you're at high risk, talk to your doctor about getting vaccinated for the Mpox. And when you're outside, be safe. Everybody be safe. I don't care who you're with, heterosexual, whatever. Make sure that you understand that sexually transmitted infections are still a thing, okay? And no, Mpox is not categorized as an STI, but we know we've got plenty. HIV is still a thing, and I know we've got all the commercials on ways to treat HIV, but you have to remember, prevention is key. In a lot of communities, don't really like prevention, especially if you have people who are in denial, stigmatized in the religious realm, but you're still a person who is at high risk for HIV. Forget the stigma. Talk to your doctor about ways to prevent it, because we have some of these pills can prevent it by more than 95% if you take them consistently. You do not have to have these STIs. I don't care what community you're in. So just be safe, just be smart. Remember, condoms are still a thing, and they do prevent certain illnesses like gonorrhea, chlamydia, syphilis. If you're someone living with HIV, you're at a higher risk. Listen, just go to my YouTube channel. Oh, you're on it. Hello, good morning. Right here on the Dr. Frita YouTube channel, I have videos on HIV/AIDS. I have videos on syphilis. I have all kinds of videos. Just check it out and educate yourself, protect your loved ones. All right. Do we have any comments or questions on Mpox?
Yes, Melissa. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Melissa.
She said, when did they change it to Mpox? It sounds so much more humane than monkeypox.
Oh, yes. It was since when it first came out in 2022, it was called monkeypox. But after many conversations, it was in November. Was it November 2023? No, November 2022 that they changed it to Mpox, because yes, the other name, monkeypox, depending on, on who's using the word, we know that in many cases, monkeypox has been a racial trope, and it doesn't help that monkeypox, at least per documentation, originated in certain countries in Africa. And so for them to call it monkeypox, even though, yes, some monkeys in the bush had it, but also some squirrels had it, some rats had it, but they changed it. I believe it was November 2022 when officially the name was changed to Mpox to be more respectful. And I agree, it does sound more humane. What has not changed is that the disease, though it's not typically fatal, okay, you'll see numbers anywhere from 0 to 11% as far as fatality. We don't have a whole lot of fatality, thankfully, at least not from the strain that's currently in the United States. But as y'all know, with these viruses, they can mutate. And what is today could be different tomorrow. So I say, let's just work on anyone who's at high risk, get vaccinated, be safe, and let's see if we can eradicate this bad boy. But yeah, they changed it since this most recent epidemic that first came out in 2022. I believe it was November 2022 when they changed it to Mpox. Look, if anyone's out there and they want to look up Google Schmoogle, somebody look up and see when they changed it. Was it November 2022 when the name was changed to Mpox? Yeah, somebody let me know. I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah. Any other questions?
No, that's all the questions pertaining to Mpox.
Okay, then we'll do this last topic. And if anyone sees the month and the year where they changed it, let me know if it was November 2022. So then let's hit on this last topic, and then we'll see if we have any other questions just in general in the live Q&A. Remember, you can always ask kidney questions, but also any other questions pertaining to our topics. But yeah, for this last one, it's just a follow-up because we did hit on the bird flu. Last time we talked about how millions of chickens have had to be slaughtered because they were infected with the bird pox, with bird flu, bird flu. But now the World Health Organization just last week on Wednesday, confirmed that a man has lost his life with complications of the bird flu in Mexico. And so we'll play just a portion of this clip, and then we'll talk about bird flu, the strains. Should you be worried about beef? Should you be worried about milk? Should you be worried about eggs? What should you do? How can you get bird flu? Because you don't want it, because there's actually a 60% mortality if you do get bird flu. So let's play this and we'll talk about the updates, and then we'll see if there's anybody for the live Q&A. And make sure that you like this video as you come in. It lets YouTube know that we're giving evidence-based information. All right.
All right, thank you.
Organization confirming that a person in Mexico has died from a strain of bird flu never before identified in humans. Bird flu concerns have been in the headlines in Michigan in this particular case. The 59-year-old man reportedly had underlying health conditions. Joining us with more is our chief health editor, Dr. Partha Nandi. Thank you for being with us again. And can you tell us about this case and how he may have gotten infected?
Yeah, this spooks a lot of people, right, Simon? The bird flu strain in this case is H5, the first laboratory confirmed human case of the subtype. Now, the patient was hospitalized at the National Institute of Respiratory Diseases in Mexico City on April 24th. And his symptoms included fever, diarrhea, nausea, shortness of breath. Now, sadly, he died the same day from complications related to the bird flu. Now, according to Mexico's health ministry, the patient had multiple underlying health issues. That's important, including diabetes, high blood pressure, and chronic kidney failure. He had also been bedridden for 3 weeks prior, so was most likely in a weakened state before getting infected. Not to mention, anyone with these pre-existing conditions is at high risk for severe illness, even from our usual seasonal flu strains. Now, how did this man in Mexico contract H5N2? That's the question, right? We don't know that yet. The World Health Organization said the patient had no history of poultry or animal exposure despite 3 poultry outbreaks of H5N2 in nearby parts of Mexico. Simon, flu viruses usually circulate amongst birds, but can occasionally infect other species. Humans can contract this virus through direct contact with infected animals or exposure to contaminated environments.
Okay. So yes, the man in Mexico did die with the bird flu. So if anyone has any questions about bird flu, then please go ahead and put those in the chat. I'll just speak briefly about it right now, but make sure you check out my Instagram. If we could put my Instagram up, because on my Instagram, I actually went into detail. I did a reel, just a little quick 1 minute and some change information where I talk about this update, and I talk briefly about the definition of bird flu, the H1N1 strain that's here, the H2N2 strain that actually caused the man to lose his life in Mexico. And I kind of talk about some ways that is spread. But yeah, getting back to this story, one thing that is important. So here in the United States, the H1N1 strain is what has infected at least 82 cattle herds here in the US across 10 states. And it's not good. It's no bueno, because you definitely don't want to have an infected cow, because that's one way that you can get the bird flu that can go from the cow to the human. So bird flu or avian flu is a virus. It's actually a type of influenza virus. Like, you know how we get the viruses for flu season, type A, type B. There's also one called type C. This is a type A influenza virus. And the type A viruses are the ones that can go back and forth from humans to animals and so forth. Type B tend to be just from human to human. But thus far with this strain, H1N1, we have no documented human to human transmission. And so we know that at least 3 dairy workers got the bird flu here in the United States, H1N1, and it's believed to be from direct contact with cows or with cow secretions. And then the person, again, they don't know for sure in Mexico, he had a different strain, H2N2, and they don't have a reported contact with poultry, but we know that there were some poultry outbreaks there with the H2N2. And one thing that's interesting about him, the officials in Mexico did share that he had chronic illnesses, as you saw, diabetes, high blood pressure, kidney disease, and that he was already sick, that he had been bedridden for 3 weeks, even before the discovery of the H2N2. But here's what the World Health Organization, WHO, took its time to make sure that they did their thorough investigation. He did have H2N2 bird flu. So while having those other illnesses would very likely have compromised his immune system, no question about that, what he died from, according to the World Health Organization, was complications of bird flu. Okay, complications of bird flu. And there have been documentations that the H1N1 strain, if you get that, then you have up to a 60% chance of dying, okay? 60% chance of mortality. And so who's at risk? People who are in close contact with animals that have the bird flu, be it poultry, be it cattle. And reportedly, at least one of the people who got it from the cows, they didn't have proper personal protective equipment. And so if you're going to be around animals, and especially if there's a suspicion that they have the bird flu, you want to have the facial covering, the body protection, and even their secretions. You want to make sure you're not touching secretions that are left on a table or a slaughtering area. You want to make sure you don't have direct contact. And the other thing is raw milk. Raw milk. If you're a person who drinks raw milk, like not even pasteurized milk, you definitely want to avoid it when there's a suspicion of infected cows, because there have been some anecdotal reports of some cats who've had raw milk from cattle that have been infected, and there have been reports of cats dying after drinking that raw milk. So think about that if you're someone who has unpasteurized milk. Yeah. So right now there's no human to human transmission, but remember, again, these viruses can mutate. So what's true today might not be true tomorrow. All right. But if you have any questions about flu or influenza in general, just ask me. And also, I do have a video on this YouTube channel, Dr. Frita YouTube channel, where I talk about influenza explained or flu explained, where I give the history of flu right down to the Spanish flu back in 1918. I talk about all of it, but I give you more information there. Any questions related to that? And if not, we can open it up to any live questions, or if anyone who actually wants to come up on stage with us for these this last quick minute, put an orange heart emoji next to your question, and we'll see if we can invite you up. All right.
All right. You already answered the question. So, Karen had asked if it affects both poultry and beef. So you answered that question already.
Very good, Karen. Even beyond poultry and beef, guess what? So yeah, the bird flu really started out circulating among birds, but it's one of those that easily jumps to other animals. So not only has it affected chickens, not only has it infected at least 82 cattle herds, there have been reports of it affecting alpacas, those cute little animals that look like llamas. There have been reports of it affecting seals. So it can jump from animal to animal. And now we see that from the animals, we as humans can get it as well. The only thing that hasn't been reported yet, at least with this H1N1 strain this go round, is human to human. And I hope it stays that way. Good question.
Good question. She says, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, was it Monica? No, Melissa. She came back. So you were correct, Dr. Frita. I had no doubt you were about November 2022.
Okay, good. Okay. It's so funny. When I'm not 100% on something, it just sits here and just bugs me like a gadfly. Like, did I say it right? Okay. So November 2022. So that's when they changed it to Mpox. Thank you.
All right. Question time. All right. We have Albie Clef.
Hey, Albie Clef. What you got? Oh, my goodness.
Can kidneys cause neurological problems?
Yes. Okay. So your kidneys are your two organs located in your flanks, right where your love handles are, each one about 9 to 11 centimeters. They're responsible for filtering out excess toxins from the blood, excess fluid from the blood, helping you to not be anemic, helping you to activate vitamin D, good for bone health. They do so much. Who doesn't love a kidney? And I'm not just saying that because I'm a board certified kidney doctor. I really do think that the kidneys are awesome. Who's biased? Not me. But here's the thing. If your kidneys stop working and you develop kidney failure and you get toxins that build up, that's called uremia. So in your lab, that BUN, blood urea nitrogen, when it gets too high and you become uremic, that BUN is actually toxic to your nerves. Okay. And once you get uremia to the point where it's toxic to your nerves, then you can have confusion. You can have an abnormal gait or an abnormal way that you walk. You can have memory loss. You can have slurred speech. You can have a tremor. You can get asterixis. You can get a shaking where you can't really open a bottle or a can. And so, and it can even get to the point where you are unalive because of all the neurological problems. So can kidneys, or specifically, can kidneys failing cause neurological problems? Absolutely. Yes. Be sure you check out my video right here on this Dr. Frita YouTube channel on CKD stages, where I talk about stage 1 all the way through stage 5. And stage 5, if there's no treatment or intervention, that's where patients can develop neurological symptoms from kidney failure. Thank you for the question.
Miss Chatting with Elise.
Hi, Miss Chatting with Elise.
Are people with CKD more prone to cancers?
Oh, that's a very good question. So I'll tell you this. When you are a patient who has CKD, just generally speaking, just statistically speaking, oftentimes patients who have CKD will have other illnesses as well. So for example, if you get CKD due to diabetes or high blood pressure, then that's going to be due to damage of the blood vessels that give supply to the kidneys, and you may have damage to other blood vessels. Well, let's take a little step back. If you're a person with CKD, you may also have some of the risk factors, okay, that put you at increased risk for cancer. So hepatitis, for example, hepatitis is a risk factor for CKD. Hepatitis is also a risk factor for liver cancer. And then also, if you're a person who progresses all the way to end-stage renal disease or being on dialysis, there are statistics that show that you may have an increased risk for renal cell carcinoma. If you are a smoker, smoking can be a risk factor for kidney disease. Smoking cigarettes is also a risk factor for lung cancer, for cervical cancer. So even though it's not necessarily a cause and effect, like having CKD causes you to have cancer, sometimes if you're in that same risk group as far as having CKD, and certainly if you progress to end-stage renal disease, there may be overlap with having cancer. The most important things to do what you can do as far as getting your proper screening. So consult with your doctor about age-appropriate screening for breast cancer, for cervical cancer, for prostate cancer. And if you're a person who has a history of tobacco abuse, then depending on how many packs a day you smoked or for how many years, then you may qualify for a screening for lung cancer. So doing those things, and of course, doing your best to live your healthiest, happiest life, eating the healthy foods, doing mostly plant-based. So if you eat meat, eating lean meats or like fatty fish that's high in omega-3 acids, which actually help to fight free radicals or help to fight cancer-causing agents. Yeah, you want to do all the things that you have control of, maintaining a healthy weight, avoiding smoking cigarettes. Cigarettes are on the list of just about so many cancers. Then all those things that can help. Yeah. I never had that question before. Thank you.
That was a good question.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Miss Gladys, she has two questions. I'm going to ask her first one, and there's a piggyback on hers. So hi, Miss Gladys.
Hi, Miss Gladys.
How do you know when you're having a heart attack?
Whew. So here's the truth, Miss Gladys. So heart disease is the #1 killer in the United States. The #1 killer. And there are certain symptoms that can warn you that you're having a heart attack, but sometimes you can have a silent heart attack. And that's what's really scary. And some patients, specifically patients who have diabetes, oftentimes have no symptoms, okay? Or they have atypical symptoms, I should say. And so here are some of the classic symptoms. Of course, chest pain. If you're having a crushing pain in the center of your chest or left of center, and people describe it as feeling like an elephant sitting on your chest, okay? Sometimes the pain can radiate to your left jaw or your left neck or your left shoulder, okay? So that will be more of a classic pain. You can also even get an epigastric pain, meaning like in the upper center part of your stomach, just below your ribs, just below your breastbone. You can get that kind of a pain. You can also get diaphoresis, which means you get this excessive sweating or like breaking out into a cold sweat. You can get shortness of breath. All of these things can be some of the symptoms, the classic symptoms for a heart attack. Also, if you're noticing that you're getting some chest pain or chest palpitations, especially with exertion, like if you walk a block or a half a block, and consistently when you walk up a flight of steps, walk a block, you're getting chest pain, that's angina, and that can be a warning symptom. Make sure you check out my video right here on this Dr. Frita YouTube channel on heart attack symptoms, where I go into more detail. Very importantly, you want to make sure that you are up to date with your primary care physician, your internist, your family doctors. Make sure you're up to date on those visits where they screen you to let you know if you're at high risk for heart disease, because again, is the #1 killer. Heart disease is. So you want to make sure that you want to not have diabetes, but if you do have it, you want to make sure that it's controlled and that your hemoglobin A1C is in a good place. You want to have a good control of your blood pressure. You want to have good cholesterol. You want to exercise. According to the American Heart Association, it's recommended that most adults do moderate exercise for at least 150 minutes per week. So that divides up into about 30 minutes of exercise per day in 5 days, something like that in a week. So make sure you're exercising properly, maintain a healthy weight, do all of the things to help to prevent having a heart attack, and talk to your doctor about whether or not they recommend a low dose aspirin. That used to be widely recommended. Now it's case by case. You want to talk to your doctor. But yeah, so that's the deal on the heart disease. Definitely a great question, because again, it's the number one thing that takes people on out of here. Good question.
Good question. Piggybacking on her, TS.
Hi, TS.
Is there any test to show if you had a non-symptomatic heart attack?
Yes. Yes. So there are a few tests. One of the most basic tests that most primary care doctors can do is an EKG, just that heart tracing, that electrocardiogram. The way that the electricity works in the heart is that you know, if you ever look at it, it looks kind of like the up and down, different little points. Well, there's a method to the madness of that EKG because there's a certain direction that the graph will point when you have normally functioning heart tissue. But if you've had a heart attack or a myocardial infarction, so myocardial infarction means death of heart muscle, myo, muscle, cardio, heart, infarction, death. Myocardial infarction, if there's death of heart tissue, then there's a change in the electrical activity. So sometimes an EKG can be read as old infarct or old heart attack, even if you never knew that you had it. And there are other ways as well that a cardiologist can do. Certain scans of the chest, certain echoes and the motion of the heart can give signs of whether or not there's been heart attack. But the short answer is yes, there are ways to find out if you had a silent heart attack, like as what I was saying, many diabetes patients have. And if you're suspicious, I say yes, talk to your primary care doctor and ask about a cardiology referral, so you can find out if you have heart disease and what you can do to prevent it, or certainly prevent any further heart disease. What else you got?
Thank you. That was a pretty good question.
Yeah, that's different than what we've gotten. Also,
yeah, it is. I'm just glad the second question. I already kind of covered this up. You can reiterate the acronym for a stroke. She said, how do you know if you're having a stroke?
Oh, yeah. So the acronym is B FAST, BEFAST. So B, if you're having balance problems. E, eye trouble, like blurry vision. F, facial drooping. A, arm or leg weakness. S, slurred speech. It's time to call 911 if you're having any of those symptoms.
All right. Thank you. Miss Lucy. On the topic of stroke, you mentioned earlier about the scan that you have for TIA. She says, what does white matter in the brain mean?
Oh, yeah. So that can mean many things. One of the things that white matter can mean, you could have something like multiple sclerosis. They'll talk about white matter. That's something that so you know this I know I give a lot of information, but remember, that's all I'm giving, information. What I give you does not replace the advice of your physician, because there are so many neurological processes that can give you white matter in the brain. You definitely want to consult with your physician if you or a loved one has dealt with this. But even in dealing with dementia or dealing with multiple sclerosis or other neurological processes, you'll hear white matter comments in the brain. MS is one of the popular ones, though, multiple sclerosis. But just because you have white matter, it doesn't mean that you have the diagnosis. So you want to consult with your physician, specifically a neurologist, to find out the whole battery of tests. It may require a spinal tap. It may require cognitive testing. It may require blood tests to figure out exactly what the white matter means.
All right, thank you. We have a question from Margot. Hopefully I'm
Hi, Margot.
So Margot has a question about severe dehydration.
Okay.
I guess, how do you know if you're severely dehydrated? And then her second part was about swelling in the legs, thighs, and feet, maybe breast.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so we'll start with the severe dehydration. Let me tell you something. Look, now y'all got me wanting to drink something. Hold on. By the time you feel thirst, then your body is already behind, okay? And you're probably already dehydrated. Maybe not severely dehydrated, but it's important to not be severely dehydrated, because severe dehydration can lead to kidney failure. And yes, I have put patients on dialysis because of severe prolonged dehydration that's led to kidney failure. And severe dehydration can cause other things. You can certainly faint. You can have other issues with severe dehydration. But some of the symptoms of severe dehydration are, of course, going to be extreme thirst, dry mouth. You can have confusion, lightheadedness, heart palpitations, weakness. This can happen with severe dehydration. Dry, cracked lips. If someone comes and pinches your skin, you can get tinting. So normally when you pinch somebody's skin, it should pop down if their skin is supple and real hydrated. But if you pinch and it takes a long time for that pinch to go down, that's tinting, and that can be a sign of severe dehydration. And if you're dealing, so that's with adults. If you're dealing with babies, especially a new baby that still has that soft spot open in the top of the head, that anterior fontanelle, it may be sunken down, or the baby can have a dry mouth. The baby can have just weakness, lethargy, not want to eat, not want to drink. Babies are tricky because if you have a baby, for example, they can't talk. They can't tell you what's going on when you're talking about pre-verbal babies. If you have a baby who's got diarrhea and then they're sick, so they don't want to drink. Or we were just talking about this. My brother was a little tiny baby. He had severe dehydration, diarrhea, but then really sick and not wanting to drink. And that led to severe dehydration, which in little babies can be fatal. Spoiler alert, my brother's alive and well. He's 6'4" and thriving very nicely. He was just visiting this weekend at the house. But anyway, so those are some of the symptoms of severe dehydration. Again, that dehydration can cause multiple problems, including kidney failure. Oh, and I do have a video on here. Yes, it's Dr. Frita YouTube channel where I talk about the importance of drinking water. And I talk about the different types of water, alkaline water, bottled water. I go into all kinds of details on what kind of water might be best for you and the importance of staying hydrated. So part 2, feet swelling. What was the question on that?
So she mentioned swelling in legs, thighs, feet, and possible breast.
Okay. So of course, different things can cause
I guess
swelling.
what could be a possible cause of it? It's not really a direct.
Yeah. So we'll run through a differential diagnosis. And again, number one, if you're having that or a loved one is having that, don't play with it. Consult your doctor. So whatever I tell you, I'll give you some information, but I'm telling you, please consult a doctor who can do a history, a physical, and really do the diagnosis. But just in general, for information purposes, some of the things that can cause swelling of the feet and even breast, one, congestive heart failure can do it. If the heart is not pumping as strongly as it should, and you get a backup of fluid in the body and the tissues, you can get swelling in the feet, the ankles, the legs, the stomach. You can get anasarca, a generalized swelling. You can get swelling on the breast, especially sometimes a dependent edema. If you wake up and one breast is bigger than the other, you can get swelling from congestive heart failure. Another thing that can cause swelling, kidney failure. If you're not making urine in the way that you should, you can get a backup of fluid in the body that can cause swelling. Or even if you are making urine, but you're leaking protein, if you have proteinuria, okay, especially if you have a lot of protein leaking in the urine, you can get something called nephrotic syndrome, and that can cause an anasarca or a generalized swelling. If you have a lot of salt intake, sometimes that can cause you to have swelling or high blood pressure. Usually that's going to be more limited to feet, ankles, lower extremities. But if you're dealing with kind of generalized swelling, including in the breast, you want to make sure that your heart is checked and that your kidneys are checked as well. Liver failure can also be a contributing factor, especially if you have low protein, your liver's not making much protein, and so you get a protein deficiency. Your protein or albumin acts kind of like a sponge inside of your blood vessels, okay? So it keeps fluid inside the vessels. So if you have low protein for whatever reason, be it protein malnutrition, okay, or you're not making enough protein or you're losing protein in the urine, having low protein in the blood vessels can cause fluid to seep out into the tissues and cause swelling. Also, you can get swelling if you have certain blockages, like if you get lymphedema. We've talked about lymphedema. That's something that Wendy Williams has shared that she has. So if you go and check out my series, I have it in a series on this YouTube channel, What Happened to Wendy Williams or Wendy Williams Health, where I do one whole video where I talk about Wendy Williams' feet. I talk about lymphedema and basically the blockage or the malfunction of those vessels that help you to drain. Or if you have venous insufficiency where your veins aren't working, you can get swelling. And if you have any kind of blockage, even in some of the upper vessels that would drain your breast, that can cause swelling as well. So those are just a few things that can cause swelling. But again, consult with your physician and take this as information. Go get your proper advice from your medical doctor.
All right, thank you. A few more questions, and we'll be out.
Ebony
just popped in with it. Great question, Ebony. What causes congestive heart failure?
Okay, so the number one cause is going to be ischemic heart disease. Okay, so like if you have a history of having blocked heart arteries or blocked coronary arteries, certainly if you've had a heart attack or myocardial infection. So ischemic heart disease is going to be the top cause of it. But other things can cause congestive heart failure as well. One, excessive alcohol use. You can get a dilated cardiomyopathy if you're someone who uses alcohol, drinks alcohol in excess. Oh, make sure you check out my video. Yes, here. Y'all seeing the theme? We got a lot of videos on this channel, Shador, for real. But I have a video on the dangers of alcohol. So yeah, so that can do it. Certain chemotherapies. Yeah, certain chemotherapies. Because who was that who opened up? I think it was John with the statement pretty much that some people can't handle chemotherapy, you know, it causes problems. Certain ones, specifically something called adriamycin, is a chemotherapy used often for the treatment of breast cancer. It can also cause a dilated cardiomyopathy. Okay, so you can get a congestive heart failure from that. Okay, so we talked about the most common one, the heart disease. We talked about alcohol doing it, chemotherapy. Ooh, you can get a viral myocarditis. So like from certain viruses, like a Coxsackie virus, it can cause an infection, inflammation that affects the heart, and it can lead to congestive heart failure as well. So yeah, so there are lots of different causes, but those are some of the big ones. Yeah.
Great question, Ebony. Thank you. I haven't had that one yet.
I know. Hi, Miss Pat D. Look, she opened us up with the chat, and let's see what else she got going on. Miss Pat
Dr. Frita, what's a good weight for 5'2" height?
Now, I can tell you something, Miss Pat D. You're definitely going to have to go and talk to your physician where they see you face to face, because here's the thing. You know that the general measure that we tend to talk about for healthy weight is BMI, right? Body mass index. But with the body mass index, they only take into account your height and your weight. They don't care about your muscle mass. They don't care about your bone density. They don't care about your percentage of fat. They don't care about any of that. Okay. They don't care how you shaped up or where your fat distribution is. So if you want to deal with the BMI, then what you would do, you can, that's not the best one, but just as a general rough kind of a look, you would go into your smartphone, look up BMI calculator, put in your height, put in your weight. And if you are told that your BMI is above 30, then you're considered to be a person living with obesity. If it's above 25, you're considered to be a person who is overweight. That being said, what if you're someone who runs, or you're very muscular or very dense bones? You might have a high BMI that puts you in a category of living with obesity or living with being overweight, but you actually might have a healthy weight. So the better way to figure out a healthy weight for you as a 5'2" person is to get a body scan. Number one, consult with your physician and kind of get some different ideas. But to get a body scan, especially one that will show you your muscle mass, show you your fat percentage, show you your bone density, so you'll know that based on your body habits, what weight is healthy for you. So let's take some 5'2" people. The weight that's healthy from a 5'2" gymnast, or a 5'2" bodybuilding female, or a 5'2" female who plays basketball. Yeah, some 5'2" women who are good at basketball, or a 5'2" woman who's a dancer and very muscular is going to be very different than a healthy weight from a 5'2" person who is perhaps sedentary, or who does not have, or who has osteoporosis, right? Who has some thin bones. The number, the weight, healthy weight number is going to vary from person to person. So BMI might give you a very rough estimate, but that's not our most accurate estimate. The other thing is to check your waist circumference, okay? Your waist to hip circumference to find out. So yeah, but you definitely need a face-to-face history and physical, and a physician who can help you to figure out a healthy weight for you. Because let me tell you something. If you're one of these people, and I'm not saying that you have, but just in general, anyone, if you've gone and if you go to a doctor and they just look at your BMI, they may be telling you, oh, you need to lose this many, 50 pounds, 70 pounds. And you may remember what you looked like 50 pounds ago or 70 pounds ago. And you might know, I'll look emaciated, and that's not the right weight for me. And your gut really could be correct. So you need to talk to your physician. I recommend that you talk to your physician about different ways. And also, even for certain things like Weight Watchers, which y'all know Oprah used to be heavily into Weight Watchers. Now she's doing different things. But Weight Watchers will oftentimes give people a goal weight based on their height. And sometimes that goal weight is way below what a healthy weight for that person is, especially a person who has, you know, a lot of muscle mass or bone density. But yeah, the answer is you got to go to your doctor, and the BMI is not going to give you the best measurement, but a body scan or some actual measurements of your body size will.
All right. Thank you. Question from Sheree.
Hi, Sheree.
Is a parathyroidectomy a safe procedure for CKD stage 3B/4?
It depends. That's the short answer. And so I will sum it up this way. So your parathyroid glands are the glands that, the four glands that are right next to or right on your thyroid. So, your thyroid gland is that butterfly shaped organ that sits in the front of your neck. The parathyroid glands are separate as far as function from the thyroid gland. And you usually have four, 1, 2, 3, 4. If your parathyroid, if you have an overactive parathyroid gland, it can cause you to have high calcium or hypercalcemia, which can cause you to have weak bones, increased risk for bone fracture, kidney stones, peptic ulcer disease. It can even cause mental status changes, mess. Okay. Now, when the parathyroid dysfunction is related to kidney disease, usually it is a more advanced kidney disease, oftentimes CKD4 or even CKD5, but it's possible for it to be at CKD3B. And what happens is that when the kidneys aren't functioning well, you get issues with your phosphorus metabolism. Then sometimes you can get a secondary hyperparathyroidism, meaning you get overactive parathyroid gland due to the dysfunction of the kidneys. And if it gets very high and you have PTH levels that are consistently in the thousands, then yes, you're at risk for all of those consequences of PTH. And in those cases, the first thing that we try to do, and I want you to consult with your nephrologist about this, or your loved ones, whoever you're asking for, you want to make sure that all of the non-invasive medical treatments for parathyroid have been tried first, or that they're reasonable. For example, an active vitamin D might help to get the parathyroid level down, like a Zemplar, for example, or Hectorol. And if that's not working, then we have calcimimetics, things like Sensipar. That's a medicine that can help to get the PTH level down. The other thing, you want to make sure that the phosphorus is controlled, because if a patient has high phosphorus, like typically over 5.5, that can drive the parathyroid hormone to be high, where it can look like you need a parathyroidectomy. So you first want to ask your physician, ask your nephrologist about conservative treatment first. And once you've very safely maximized the conservative treatment, if you still have a parathyroid level that's in the thousands, and if you're starting to get signs of bone disease and other problems, then it's possible that the benefits of a parathyroidectomy or having the parathyroid glands removed may outweigh the risks. But this is a very nuanced discussion, and it's important to ask those questions. What are the medical treatments? Have we used all the medical treatments in my situation? What are the benefits versus risks of the medical treatment? Why are you having me to get a parathyroidectomy? Is it just because of my parathyroid related to the kidney disease, or even independent of kidney disease? Do I have an overactive parathyroid? Because if there's an overactive parathyroid that is not even related to the kidney disease, then those measures, the medical measures, aren't going to be as effective. So yeah, this is a conversation. Just ask those questions, and yeah, good luck to you. Be well.
Good question.
Mm-hmm.
Opinion, R.N. Smith, 2003, Dr. Frita.
Hi,
How
R.N.
can you
Smith.
locate African-American doctors in your area?
So this is interesting
She's
because
from San Francisco Bay Area.
Hi. Ooh, I'm trying to get out to the West Coast. I've never taken my kids to California or to the West Coast or anything. But okay, but I'm over here on the East Coast. And here is one thing that you can do. So I'm a member. So we have the Atlanta Medical Association, okay, which is like the oldest organization that is for Black physicians. And before I hear all the people talking about, oh, that's not fair, oh, it's for Black physicians, when the Atlanta Medical Association was first founded, Black physicians were not allowed in the American Medical Association. Okay, so we had to do something for ourselves. So I don't want to hear it. So Atlanta Medical Association, if you Google Atlanta Medical Association, and you can see we have our executive director, Dr. Priscilla Hubbard, and there are different directories or different access or different ways where you can find some of the Black physicians who are a member of that organization. And then even on a more national level, the National Medical Association will be predominantly Black physicians. And then for Georgia, the state, GSMA, Georgia State Medical Association. So if you're looking for Georgia, Atlanta specifically, I would Google State Medical Association, GSMA, Atlanta Medical Association as a start. And you can also check out Morehouse Medical College right here in Atlanta. And of course, there's going to be other ways that you can find Black physicians, but that's going to be a good start, getting in direct contact with the executive directors of these different organizations to kind of get going on the recommendations and building up that network. Yeah, but stay tuned because I have some colleagues who are looking to actually start a directory specifically of Black physicians. And, you know, and even look, we've got data to support now because we know how the Black maternal mortality rate is through the roof. If you're a Black woman, you have like a 3 times higher chance of having maternal mortality than if you are a non-Black woman. And different studies show that many Black female patients tend to have better outcomes with Black female physicians. Y'all can call it what you want to, but there's data to support it. And so there's different reasons that someone might want to have a physician who looks like them. And if you are a person who wants a physician who looks like you, certainly you're right. And there's certainly ways to do so. Thank you for the question.
Thank you for the question.
All right, so you know it's time for us to wrap it up.
Thanks.
Hi, super thanks.
We get wrapping it up. I have a super thanks I want to mention.
All right. Hello, super thanks. Thank you. What's the word?
This is from Susan Shepperson.
Hi, Susan.
On your 7 early warning signs and symptoms of kidney problems. She says, thanks. Super thanks.
Oh, yay. Thank you for the super thanks. And you are super welcome. I appreciate the support. And also for everyone who is listening in the chat, I will thank you in advance if you will please like this video, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and hit that notification button so you'll be among the first to know when we release new content. For anyone who has questions that maybe they didn't want to put on the live chat, or they're more detailed questions where we would need to have a longer conversation, please make sure you check out my concierge telehealth service. You can click the link in the description, and that's where I give you one-on-one time. We have an hour discussion. I get detailed questions about your history so I can give you more specific answers. You know that I'm a board certified nephrologist, meaning I specialize in kidney disease and high blood pressure. I have also received board certifications in pediatrics and internal medicine. And most recently, I received my board certification in obesity medicine from the American Board of Obesity Medicine. So I like to know a lot about a lot. And if you feel like you want to even just run something by me for a second opinion, then check out this concierge service. We've been having a lot of good success and really being able to connect and to help people wherever you are on the globe. All right. Is that it, Shador? Those are some good old questions we had today.
Some good questions. Good questions. You have a shout out.
Oh, yeah. I like a shout out.
Miss Thomas Fahili.
Hi. How you doing? Tommy Fahili? Yay.
Yes. Hi, Dr. Frita. I hope you're having a good day. I remember you started out on YouTube, and now you're the most famous people on YouTube. I'd like to congratulate you. Great advice and great show.
I appreciate that. It's been a long road, hasn't it been? But I appreciate you, and I appreciate you still for supporting us. I really do. Thank you so much. Without people like you who have been rolling with us from day one, we would not be having this success. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Frita. Thank you.
All right. Well, there we go. We just had our Medical Monday where we really talked about the hot health topics in the news, and we did my favorite part, the live Q&A. We are live. We're answering these questions fresh, right off the dome. Love to do it. So please make sure that you hang out, that you follow me on Instagram at dr.frita, where I give a lot of short content. Plus, I'll let y'all know what's going on in my everyday life, like how my I'll tell you about my children. We'll talk about them on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook. Sometimes I give a little more detailed kind of family videos on the Facebook channel. I've got TikTok. Listen, I've lately been doing some TikTok live, Shador, with just randomly, I just been walking the dog on TikTok, talking about different topics. And I think I'll do more of that. I don't know why. I'm having fun. I better do it before TikTok disappears. But just follow me on all social media platforms. And if you're someone who is dealing with blood pressure, you want to find a better way to control it with both lifestyle management as well as medicines when necessary, make sure you check out my book, Under Pressure, A Guide to Controlling High Blood Pressure. You can get it on Amazon, and we will make sure we put the link in my video. Or how about this? Just go to my website. That's a one-stop shop, drfrita.com, drfrita.com. One more thing. Listen, make sure you put your notifications on and when you follow me here, and follow me on Instagram and Facebook, because guess what? I'm going to be on a national news show again, very likely this week, probably Wednesday, but I'll put the update on. I'm going to be on News Nation. I'll let you know exactly when. You know, News Nation is that national news show that has Chris Cuomo, it has Dan Abrams, it has Nicole Burley, It has other folks, Nick Smith, all kinds of people who are pretty cool. It's a pretty balanced national news show. But I'll be on there talking about something medical with my medical expert hat on. Child, I always wear my medical expert hat, even when I'm down at the grocery store or at a basketball game or at the family reunion. But I appreciate your support, and we will see you next Monday for another Medical Monday, 6 p.m. EST. Love y'all for watching. See you next time. Thank you, Shador.